What's up? Welcome back to the PDGA channel. Today we are continuing our series on how far I can throw, and today we are going with mid-ranges. What I don't want this series to be is just about me and my throwing. Really what I want this to be is an opportunity for me to give you all the information that I've learned on being able to throw a little bit further, so then you can start throwing further too. So I'm going to be talking about how you can actually throw these mid-ranges far and what specific situations mid-ranges really excel at, and they're going to do better than other discs in those situations. So let's hit that B-roll sequence and then we'll hit the field. We're out here at the field. I've got my mid-ranges ready to throw them. First off, I want to introduce which mid-ranges I'm throwing and kind of what spot they fit in the bag, why I have them. So first up is this sweet Crystal Sparkle Buzz. This is from this year's Ledgestone drop. Super pretty disc, flies great. What I use this for is either straight shots, or if I put it on Annhyzer, an Annhyzer angle, it's going to hold it super well. And so I can use this for turnover shots just by adjusting the angle just a little bit, and it holds it great. Really like this disc. Very minimal fade. It's really just straight as an arrow. Next up, we have my Paul Macbeth 5-time Buzz. And this disc is similar, except it has a bit of fade, right? So it's really straight, but it'll finish for me, and so it's nice if I need just a little bit at the end to finish out the shot. Next up, I have this year's Z-Swirl drone. This disc is a bit more stable, and so it'll really finish for me. Even if I put on Annhyzer, it'll come out, and so this disc is a great spot in the bag. Feels a little bit different than the Buzzes, but that's okay. Still really like this disc. Then I have a Hyzer Horning stamped Anvil. This disc is just ridiculously beefy. It's 4204 are the flight numbers, and so minimal glide, maximum fade. This disc doesn't want to go far, and no matter what angle I put it on, it's going to come out of it. And so this is quite the meat hook. Great for flare skipping shots where I just need to go super left, or if there's a really tight line that goes right and then left, this disc is great for that. Finally, I have my Casaplast Caxa. This disc is basically a longer Buzz. This thing really bombs. It's 1 speed faster at 6 speed, but it flies a lot more than that. This one is, if I just need a straight shot that goes super far, this is the disc I'm going to, because it's not going to go off the fairway. It's just going to go dead straight and finish straight. Love these discs. All have a great spot in the bag. One thing though is I probably should have a more understable mid-range in my bag for those really big turnover shots, or if I need to do a flip up then turn. I don't have that. That's something I should probably start incorporating into the bag. I've had it before, but just went out of the bag for different reasons, so I probably need to rebag something like that. I think mid-ranges are probably the most underrated part of a person's bag, right? These should be your bread and butter. You should love mid-ranges. Some people say it's the fairway driver, but I think it's the mid-range. And the reason I say that is because it has putter characteristics, except it goes further, right? So you can still get good distance with mid-ranges, but still have minimal fade on the straight flying discs, or minimal glide if you don't want it to go super far, or different things like that. And so they fly similar to putters, except further, right? And so that is super useful to have if you are in a wooded course, or if there is a lot of OB lines and you don't want to skip OB. Mid-ranges are the way to go. especially once you figure out how you can get these out there. And so we're gonna be throwing these today, trying to get them out there, trying to throw them far, because it's a really useful tool to have in the bag. So first up, I'm gonna be throwing my Ledgestone Buzz. I got a good rip on that. That threw it hard, but still just super straight. That's what I love about that disc. And then just right at the end, just kind of drop down. Not much left to right movement. And so super helpful to have. And once you're able to really start dialing in your form and getting that extra distance, these become great tools for, you know, those 350-foot shots. And one thing that I think a lot of people forget is if you're throwing on a 380-foot hole, right? And you can only get your mid-ranges 350 feet, that's okay. If the mid-range is the best disc for that line, you know it's going to hit the line, get down the fairway. 30 feet is still a putt, right? You can make a 30-footer. If you throw a fairway instead because you're like, oh, that's easier to get the distance, but you're not as confident in the line and you get off the fairway, or maybe you skip super hard, so then you're 40 feet left of the pin, even though you went 380, but you're left of the pin 40 feet, that's a further putt. So keep in mind that mid-ranges can be really useful tools, even on holes that are a little bit outside of your reach. So next up, I'm gonna be throwing the 5-time Paul McBeth Buzz. Put that one on a slight Annhyzer angle, still came out of it and then finished a little bit left, which just shows that it's a little more stable than my other Buzz, but got a good rip on it, went out there pretty far, which was great. Next up, I'm gonna be throwing the Z-Drone. And another thing that I think is really important to talk about with mid-ranges is par fours. I think mid-ranges are super underused on par fours because a lot of times we see, oh, it's 600 feet. I wanna throw as far as I can on this first shot, so then it's a really easy second shot, which sometimes is great, especially in a wide open hole. But if you really wanna be specific on your landing zone, a mid-range is a great way to do that because like I talked about, it's not going to skip as far as a fairway or a full speed driver. It's not gonna have as much churn or fade typically, and so if you use a mid-range, you're gonna be able to be much more intentional with where your disc is landing, so then you have an easier second shot, even if it's slightly further because you're not throwing a high-speed driver, so then it's easier to get a birdie. So mid-ranges can be a great tool for par fours. Threw that one really low because I was trying to be intentional on putting on Annhyzer because of its stability since we're going for long shots, but when I followed through, I released a little bit late, and when you follow through with an Annhyzer, you're wanting to go across your body and down to replicate that angle of the disc, and if you release late, it's going to be lower. If you release early, it's going to be higher. And so when throwing Annhyzers or Hyzers, same rule applies. You really need to be very focused on releasing at your right point right in front of you, so then you're not releasing low or high. So that's an error I made right there, but a good thing to think about. Next up, I'm throwing the Anvil. Like I said, this disc is crazy. It's really not made to go far, so I'm probably not gonna throw this thing very far right now. Maybe 300 if I get a really good rip on it, but it's gonna take a lot of Annhyzer. So it's a force flex like we talked about in the putter video with the zone. So if you haven't seen that video yet, go check it out. I'll link it above. So let's throw this on big Annhyzer and see if we can get some distance. You know, that actually got out there a decent bit. I did release it a little bit early, which means it was high because it's in the Annhyzer, like we talked about. And so it got out there a little bit, but I wasn't able to get a full flex out of it because I released it a little bit early and it was high. So it's wanting to be more stable. The higher you put a disc, the stability kicks in sooner if it stalls out. Last up, we have the Caxa. And one last tip I want to talk about with mid-ranges is power, right? it can be really easy to want to rip on every shot. And when you do that with a higher speed disc, you have a higher percentage of going the wrong way, right? And so when you're throwing hard with a mid-range, you don't have as big of a miss, right? If I really rip on this disc, it might turn a little bit, right? And then it'll come back a little bit. But if I really rip on an understable driver, it's gonna turn a varying amount, right? If I get a great rip on it, it's probably gonna turn a lot, get all the way over. If I feel like I ripped it hard, but I didn't quite get the right snap, it might not all the way flip up. And so because there's so much varying degree with higher speed discs, because you need to throw the speed of the disc to get the accurate flight characteristics, right? We talked about that in an earlier video. That means that the higher speed of the disc, the more touchy it is, because you have to be able to show that speed with your arm to be able to get the flight characteristics out of it. With a lower speed disc, like a mid-range, you don't need to throw it quite as hard to get accurate flight characteristics. You can throw what would be a 12 speed power with a 6 speed disc, and it's gonna fly basically the same as if you put 6 speed of power on it, right? The minimum potential to get the flight out of the disc. And so what's great about mid-ranges is there is less of a difference in your flight depending on the minute differences in power you're putting on it, if you got the perfect snap or if you accidentally rounded a little bit or things like that. And so throwing a mid-range is going to minimize your variables of what could go wrong. All right, so let's throw this Kaxa, see if we can get it way out there. That one was a little bit low, but got a pretty good rip on it. So let's go check out these distances. All right, we're back. We got the distances. As expected, the two overstable mid-ranges, the Anvil and the drone, didn't go super far. The drone, I just threw into the ground because I released late, and the Anvil was just kind of stalled up high, and so it bailed out early. Still got up to 290 for the Anvil, which is honestly pretty good for a disc with 2 glide and is that overstable. So I'm really happy with that. Next up, we have the 2 buzzes. The further one went 333 feet. So just about as far as my Luna went last week, except way more controlled, right? This is just a straight line, whereas the Luna, I'm throwing up high on Hyzer. It's just so understable that it flips all the way over and just kind of pans to the right, which could be useful in certain situations, but that straight buzz shot is gonna be way more useful, way more of the time. And so having that straight shot for about 330 is great. Lastly, I have my Kaxa, which, like I said, is my bomber mid-range. Even though it's only 1 speed faster, it flies way further, and so I was able to get that one out 375 feet. I've thrown it a little bit further in rounds before, but I'm still really happy with that distance. 375 is great for a mid-range because, like I said, there's gonna be a lot of shots on wooded courses where it's like 380 straight, right? So if I can throw 375 straight with that disc, then it's gonna be awesome because I'm gonna have a putt. And I don't have to worry about all those extra variables of having a higher speed disc with more turn or more fade. It's just gonna be way more controllable having a lower speed disc that just goes straight. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful for you as I talked about kind of some of these tips with mid-ranges and where they're most useful and why you'd maybe use a mid-range instead of a different disc. If you've liked the video, please leave a like down below. And if you haven't yet, subscribe. I would love to have you help support this channel, join along on this journey as I'm trying to give you guys as much helpful tips and content as I can. And we will see you next week for the next video. Thank you for watching.